In this episode, we were asked about what would we do as coaches with someone that's starting CrossFit, and specifically about a younger athlete. This one is 17 years old, and how he would start. What should he do? Gymnastics, strength work, etc. And so I'll answer that question for you guys. All right, Juan Batista AM asks, when starting CrossFit, 17 years old, what should my primary focus be? Perfecting gymnastics or improving strength, etc.? This is a good question for really anybody that's starting the sport. So the first thing I do in a consult would be to look at what their training age is first, and then their biological age. So not to say that biological age doesn't matter. Obviously it does, especially in a high intensity sport like this, but I want to see where you've been and where you want to go. So the first step is, hey, what have you done? What has your past training looked like? At 17, you obviously probably haven't had that much training. So we take a look at kind of what your training age looks like. What kind of training have you done? How has it evolved into the time that you're at now? And then from there, we come up with a plan. And when I start with a client, or any of the training think tank coaches start with a client, the first step would be an assessment. So after we talk about what you've done in the past and where you want to go, what your goals are, we lay out an assessment plan to kind of look at whatever limitations you may have, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and then from there we take, the nice thing about having so many athletes on board is to be able to look at all the data points that we have. And let's say that your goal is, hey, by the age of 24, I want to make the games. Well, then we know that we have 7 years to get you to the games. We can look at all of your data points from the assessment, and then we look at all the data points that we have of regional level athletes, games level athletes, top 100 level open athletes, top 250 open level athletes, and so on. And basically I kind of put you in a chart or a graph and say, hey, you're really good at these two things, but you're really bad at these things, or this is something that we need to work on, this looks really good. And then we start or plan a training year around it that way. The nice thing about being 17, and the next question that he had, actually I'll kind of answer this too, is 17 too old to start? I think 17 is a perfect age. You're kind of starting that developmental time to where, for most people, especially in the States, you're getting out of high school, so maybe you have a little bit more time if you're not going into college, or if you're going into college, you still have more time to train, you don't have a full-time job. It's a perfect time to get in and train multiple times a day and really build a big base. The nice thing about it is, if you have a goal for like 24, there's 7 years that you can train, build a huge base, and then start focusing in on more of the sport-specific stuff as you go down the road. But I think that for anybody that's starting the sport, the first thing is, okay, what have you done in the past and where do you want to go? So we're creating a vision. We know what your current reality is by talking about what your training age looks like, what you've done in the past, and then we create a vision for the future and say, okay, here are the steps that we need to take to get you there. And that's kind of the starting process that I would use. Oh yeah, one more part to that. He did ask about, should I perfect gymnastics or improve strength first? Again, it depends on the athlete. For someone that is younger, typically what I'll do is a lot of focused, strict gymnastics work to really make sure that they're building their in ranges and they're strong in those in ranges first. And then we'll focus on strength work kind of as the main base of the training. But it looks a lot different depending on the athlete, right? So like if I have someone that has, a strength bias versus someone that has an endurance bias, male versus female, someone that hasn't trained at all before. So I know that's a very broad way to answer the question, but I think part of individual design is kind of figuring out as a coach your athlete and where their weaknesses are, and then starting from that point, not just coming up with a blanket design for everybody.
When I created Training Think Tank, I wanted it to be just that, a think tank, a group of people that gets together and challenges each other's ideas on training. So what you watch in this video is one coach's beliefs. The other coaches and myself may or may not agree with what was said, but we're okay with that because we want to facilitate a discussion about training in the market.